Coast to coast. The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
What's up, everybody? To the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airways of ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. By the way, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save pay an average of $699 less per year. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Lots of stuff to get into today. Antonio Brown, more news. Clapping back at Big Ben Roethlisberger. We'll get into all of that. Definitely got to talk about that. Of course, more fallout from the whole Andrew Luck thing. As the season approaches, we're going to be taking a look at the NFL season and some of your predictions, some of your projections. Talk a little college football as well, because that's starting in just 3 days. I mean, it started last week with Miami and Florida, but, I mean, Alabama plays. Clemson plays. Oklahoma plays. Georgia plays, stuff like that. So we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm going to get in a little bit of Michigan stuff as well about Jim Harbaugh. Plus, I'm going to touch on an injury to the Crimson Tide, Alabama, that some believe may very well end up costing them a national championship this year. We'll get into all of that. But I'm going to start off with a little basketball talk because I want to say this. Kobe Bryant made news. The great Kobe Bryant, the future Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer, that is Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest players to have ever blessed us with this game. His game putting his greatness on display. That Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was interviewed and spoke about Shaquille O'Neal. And obviously, if you were listening to him, it was not very, very flattering. He and Shaq had won 3 titles together. Despite it, the two had become foes and the complicated relationship had forged. Just reading from one of the articles here. Bryant was recently in Las Vegas for the 10th annual PHP Agency Convention. And he got to be interviewed by Patrick Bet-David. At one point, Bryant was asked about Shaq's work ethic and whether or not he went hard in the gym. As Bryant explained, he's told Shaq numerous times that he's, quote, unquote, a lazy ass, end quote. Although he was quick to give him some high praise as well. According to Kobe Bryant, he'd be the greatest of all time. The greatest of all time. Bryant said when speaking on how Shaq would have been had he gone to the gym. Kobe, he'd be the first to tell you that. I wish he was in the gym. I would have had 12 effing rings, end quote. Let me come to Kobe's defense in this regard. He has said nothing in that interview that he hasn't said on numerous occasions, including to Shaq's face. Kobe Bryant didn't say anything behind Shaq's back. He wasn't phony. He wasn't fake. He was as real and as candid and as authentic as you know him to be. If you know Kobe Bryant, there is nothing surprising about what he said. He's told Shaq that to his face. He said it behind his back. He said it in public. He said it in private. He said it to Hall of Famers. He said it to scrubs. It don't matter. Kobe Bryant has always said that about Shaquille O'Neal. Those of us close to Shaquille O'Neal, who love Shaquille O'Neal like a brother, we all know what Kobe has had to say and couldn't say a damn thing against it. Because it is absolutely true that there have been times, or there were times in the past, when Kobe Bryant would be on the court working his tail off for hours upon hours at a time, improving upon his game. There have been times when Kobe Bryant spoke to Shaq directly and was like, let's do this, big fella, let's get it going. And then we'll go in the training room and see Shaq swallowing about 3 Big Macs. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. There's no denying it. There's no denying it. But here's why I think if the question was being asked like it was fair or foul, the only issue I had with Kobe Bryant saying what he said is that to bring it up now in the fashion that he brought it up, you knew Shaq was going to clap back because you knew that Shaq was offended, no matter what Shaq says. Because Shaq will be the first to tell you, ain't no lazy dude winning 4 rings, which Shaq has done in his illustrious career. Ain't no lazy dude as dominant as I was. Ain't no lazy dude going to be considered outside of Wilt Chamberlain the most dominant force to have ever graced the floor of basketball. Shaq will also tell you, as he said on Instagram in this clap back at Kobe, we would have won more championships if you passed the damn ball in the Detroit series, which was true. Because back then, the heat between Shaq and Kobe, ladies and gentlemen, I will never divulge that stuff without the permission of both players. I would never do that to them because both of them are my boys. I got love for both of them. Both of them. Forever. But I'm here to tell you something right now. I got to get their permission to reveal the stuff that about how deep their hatred with each other went once upon a time. I mean, it was bad. It was really, really, really bad. And when Shaq sits up there and says that Kobe didn't want to give him the ball during the final series that they lost the 5 games to the Detroit Pistons, I'll be damned if he's lying. He's absolutely right. The hatred, the fuel had elevated to such proportions that it actually affected their play together on the court in that final series. There is no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. I can tell you one time, just so y'all know, because you're looking at Big Shaq, 7'1", 350 pounds, and here was the crazy part about Kobe. Most people would be scared of somebody that size, that ferocious, that powerful. Kobe was not scared of Shaq at all. I came on the air one time with y'all years ago when I was on ESPN 710 LA, just to show the local show. And I said, yo, relationship basically was over before it started because Shaq slapped the hell out of Kobe Bryant at a gym. I think it was at a Loyola Marymount, if I can remember correctly, in the summertime before Kobe's career with the Lakers even started. He was a rookie that was just drafted. That's what I had said at the time. And Kobe called me and was like, he tried to slap me. He missed. He never slapped me. Get that straight. That's what he said years ago. And from the moment that Shaq tried to put his hands on him, it was never the same. So much so that years later, when they were teammates and they were winning championships, and people were talking about Kobe shooting the basketball too much and not being a team player and being a bit selfish, if I remember correctly. I think that was the issue. Even though I can't tell you specifically what the issue was when Kobe did what I'm about to tell you, let me tell you what Kobe Bryant did, because I'm trying to give you some insight into who the hell he is. He ain't no fake, fluff, phony kind of dude now. He ain't the 7'1" Shaq. arguably the most powerful man we've seen in the sport in the modern era. But when it comes to heart and complete fearlessness, that some would argue were towards suicide proportions when you're talking about going up against Shaquille O'Neal, let me assure you, Kobe Bryant was not scared at all. Damn it, sometimes it's almost like he wanted to get into a fist fight with Shaq. And so I forgot what the incident was. Kobe Bryant grabbed the newspaper article and went to each locker in front of everybody, called every one of his teammates an MFer, and said, "You said this, MFer?" Show the article. "You said this, MFer?" You said this, MFer. Went to each locker stall, including Shaq's. That's Kobe Bryant. Ain't scared of nothing. That's who he is. That's who he was as a player. So understand, I'm not telling you, Kobe didn't say anything. He didn't say anything that he hasn't said to Shaq's face. He didn't say anything that misrepresents what his position has always been. It is completely and totally consistent. But I still think it was a little foul. And the only reason I think it was a little foul is because you and Shaq sat down. You discussed it. You discussed your careers. Phenomenal interview with the two of you on NBA TV, with y'all talking to one another one-on-one, no intermediary, just going back and forth, et cetera, each missing the positives and each admitting, rather, the positives and some flaws about the other or about each other. And all of that was supposed to be squashed. Now, to me, Kobe saying what he said yesterday is just Kobe being candid and matter of fact about it. But the clap back from Shaq says he was a bit offended. And if you Kobe, you had to know Shaq would be offended. Which means saying it, you just didn't care. Probably not a big deal. Knowing Shaq, he'll brush it off, laugh it off, talk about its marketing, just another brilliant move on his part. And Kobe was in on it. Knowing Shaq, he'll come up with some cockamamie story like that. But it ain't that simple. Now, let me be the first to say, here's what I love about Kobe. No matter what the fallout is, Kobe ain't gonna give a damn. He said what he said, he meant what he meant, period. Period. Kobe ain't trying to assuage anybody's concern. He ain't trying to gloss over it and smooth the edges. He ain't trying to do none of that. That ain't Kobe. My only point is, I thought we were past all of this. I will say this, too. I don't think Kobe and Shaq together would have had 12 rings. They might have had 7, but not 12. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I don't see that at all. I think they might have had 2 more titles together. 5 or 6, maybe, actually. They might have had 2 more titles together. Remember, Shaq went to Miami. Let's not forget the Dallas Mavericks, who lost to the Miami Heat at the time when Dwayne Wade came onto the scene and just let everybody know, I'm that dude. I'm that dude. I'm that future Hall of Famer. There's MJ, there's Kobe, and there's me. That's what Dwayne Wade said when he averaged about 37 in the final 4 games against the Dallas Mavericks. What a monster performance. But if you recall, and you talked to some Dallas Mavericks at that time, their belief was they didn't lose the series because of Shaq. They lost it because of Alonzo Mourning. He was a terror defensively. Shaq could get his points and dunk on anybody. He could do a whole bunch of things. The dream shake, he had that to his game too. But Alonzo Mourning was that nightmare for the Dallas Mavericks on the offensive side of the ball because he was so surreal defensively. That's what they would tell you. So Shaq with Kobe, 12 rings, hell no. 7 rings, probably not. 6 rings, maybe. 5 rings, definitely. Together. But that's the interesting thing about Kobe, and that's the foresight that he deserves because, again, if I had to pick fair or foul, I would use the word foul for him bringing that stuff up. But I will tell you, he looks kind of brilliant that Shaq was gone, and he ultimately ended up going back to 3 straight NBA Finals and winning back-to-back championships in 2009 and 10 because we talk about Kobe differently. Had Kobe won, and I'll ask you, the Kobe fans everywhere, the basketball fans everywhere, particularly the Los Angelians everywhere, I'd ask you this simple question. If Kobe Bryant, if as a fan of Kobe Bryant, rather, what do you prefer? The 5 rings that he has, the way that he had them? Or 6, 7, 8 rings with Shaquille O'Neal the whole time? What do you think would have been best for his legacy? Because we know what Kobe's answer is. What's yours? 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. And listen, as far as Shaq goes, did Shaq work as hard as Kobe? Hell no. Did Shaq try to get over at times? Sure. Was Shaq honest about that fact because he knew he had Kobe so he could slack off a little bit, which infuriated Kobe, which they both admitted during their one-on-one interview with each other? Absolutely. All of that stuff is true. But how many of us are walking around 350 pounds? We walking around 350 pounds, man. What are we supposed to think? What are we supposed to feel? I mean, me gobbling up 350 pounds, 3 Big Macs. If I'm 350 pounds, if it's me, I'm walking around looking pregnant. Pot belly and all of that stuff. If I'm 350 pounds, 3 Big Macs might be the equivalent of a Tic Tac. Shaq 350 pounds. So I don't think we can judge it like it's normal people sucking up Big Macs. It's Shaq. He's 350 pounds. That's all I'm saying. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That's one topic I wanted to get into. The other is Antonio Brown. Because Big Ben Roethlisberger, in this interview with NBC's Michelle Tafoya, talked about how he tried to make amends and how he had regrets about how he may have handled certain situations with Antonio Brown, that he wishes him nothing but the best, et cetera, et cetera. Antonio Brown claps back at him and says, "Never friends, just trying to get my ends. Shut up already." Disrespectful, sure. Ben Roethlisberger might deserve it to some degree, but do I think this makes Big Ben Roethlisberger look worse than Antonio Brown? Hell no. I think it makes Antonio Brown look worse. Once again, you're talking. Be quiet. Ben Roethlisberger is not your teammate anymore. You're no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler any longer. You got your $30 million from the Oakland Raiders. You seem fixated on Ben like Ben did you wrong. Would you have gotten your $30 million if it wasn't for Big Ben Roethlisberger? I don't think so. Would you have gotten the exorbitant contract you got years ago before Big Ben Roethlisberger? I don't think so. Let's please, let's keep in mind. In no way am I absolving Ben Roethlisberger from his role in anything pertaining to Antonio Brown. Ben Roethlisberger talked a little bit too much. He didn't need to talk so much on that weekly radio show. He certainly didn't need to insult Antonio Brown the way that he did. He didn't need to call out Antonio Brown after he had thrown an interception to a defensive tackle on the goal line against the Denver Broncos. Talking about Antonio Brown not running the right route. He shouldn't have said, I should have thrown the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster all day long. You can't say stuff like that. You can't do that. They're both at fault. I'm not absolving Ben Roethlisberger from anything. But Ben Roethlisberger is not continuing to stir, foment, or escalate this controversy between him and Big Ben and Antonio Brown. It's Antonio Brown who's doing this. And oh, by the way, when you make a statement, never friends, it's about my ends. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's an issue of trust. Because that's not the impression Antonio Brown gave in the past when he was seen on the sideline hugging Ben Roethlisberger. That's not the impression he gave when he called Ben Roethlisberger, when he posted 4 different pictures of him and Big Ben Roethlisberger when they were asking who his best friend was. That's not what was going on at that particular moment in time. And if you want to sit up there and make a statement like that on Twitter, which you ultimately removed that tweet, but that's after you disseminated it to millions. Here's the bottom line, Antonio Brown. You're basically saying you pretended to be friends. You pretended to be cool because you was trying to get paid. That's fine. That's reasonable. That happens in the workplace every day. But here's the flip side to all of that. How can you be trusted? Now, it may not matter because at the end of the day, we work with people every day we don't particularly like working with, we don't particularly want to work with, and we just suck it up and do our jobs. That's what we get paid to do. That's what we do. Now, we'd probably be better if we enjoyed who we were working with. We'd probably be better if we enjoyed coming to work every day. No question about that. But the bottom line is, if you're a professional, you're going to do your job. The flip side to it is that when you work in close quarters with one another, you cultivate relationships. You personalize things. You vibe with one another in a fashion that provokes and evokes personal conversations with one another. And with Antonio Brown going after Big Ben Roethlisberger this way, going after Juju Smith-Schuster the way that he did, going after Ryan Clark, our colleague here at ESPN, his former teammate, the way that he did, even though a legitimate argument could be made that those two were never friends. The bottom line is to now come back to going after Big Ben Roethlisberger the way that he did. Well, damn it, Antonio Brown, who's next? Could it be one of your teammates? It's a rhetorical question. I'm being facetious. I'm simply pointing out how somebody could think based on his actions. It's something to think about. And I think it makes him look worse than better. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. We'll get to your calls and more in just a minute. Don't touch that dial. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Some more NFL talk coming up as well. By the way, people, Rob Gronkowski and his emotions. You know, talking about he wasn't right. I don't know if we have that sound, John, but talking about he wasn't right. He had to get himself together. It was necessary to step away from the game because he just wasn't right. That's what he was saying. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Rob Gronkowski himself.
I needed to recover. I was not in a good place. Football was bringing me down, and I didn't like it. And I was losing that joy in life, like the joy. I'm sorry right now, but I really was. And I was fighting through it. And I knew what I signed up for, and I knew what I was fighting through. And I knew I just have to fix myself.
Interesting to hear that from Rob Gronkowski, because the one thing that you absolutely positively could say about Rob Gronkowski, other than the fact that he was fantastic, that he's a future Hall of Famer, that he was universally recognized as the best tight end in football, and that injuries more so than anything else in all likelihood derailed him and made him retire before the age of 30. The one thing that we cannot deny is that what is the ebulliency or the joy of playing football, it emanated from him. You saw it constantly when he was out on the field. One of my favorite times of watching the touchdown celebration from Rob Gronkowski is when the New England Patriots had to go over to London to play, and he scored the touchdown and then started marching like the soldier, what are they called, John? The folks that be the big head, the folks in England, for crying out loud. Yeah, the English guard or whatever, how he was marching like that before spiking the ball. It was really, really funny to watch him do that years back. But you know what? He got emotional yesterday when detailing his reasons for retiring from the NFL. He was speaking at an event in New York City to announce his new partnership with the CBD company, CBD Medic to be exact. And when he was speaking about that, you could see that he fought back tears in speaking about it because it was getting emotional. So one would argue, considering the environment that he was in, that he was alluding to the plethora of injuries that he incurred while he was playing football for the New England Patriots.
If you look at the situation for Zeke, from what I understand, this deal is getting done. He will be back by week 1.
At a certain point, when you say this is not working, do you wait until before the first game of the season? And if you wait before then, you're not going to play anyway.
A lot of guys will work out on their own. There's no better environment than competing every day with guys who are at your same level, who play pro football.
When you are in contract stalemates, holdouts, as one person texted me, you don't want to mess with Jerry Jones.
Lyrics, 88. Time to set it straight, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no half-stepping. Word, I'm ready. If you missed any of today's opening segment, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast. Brought to you by Capital One. Capital One is reimagining banking, offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened in 5 minutes. Capital One, hey, what's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A., member, FDIC. Also, the Stephen A. Smith Show is brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. So make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. To the phones we go at 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's go to it. Let's go to Demaria. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Yes, Demaria.
Demaria, are you there?
Stephen A. Yeah, I'm good. I'm here. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You're live on the air. Go ahead, man.
Oh, yeah, so I wanted to get into the Kobe and Shaq debate. Now,
go ahead.
Granted, what Kobe said, you know, he said it over and over and over again. But, you know, Shaq has even come out here and admitted saying that he never wanted to be the greatest of all time. He only wanted to be the most dominant. So in Shaq's own words, basically telling us he didn't try to max out his potential, even though he was still one of the all-time greats. He basically told everybody that he didn't want to be the greatest.
Well, first of all, stop. The whole point, no one's debating what Kobe's right. Nobody's debating that, not even Shaq. The question is, do you have any issue with him saying it, particularly at this moment in time?
Well, I don't have no issue on that, but I do think that, you know, Kobe's kind of blessed that they didn't win 12 rings together, what he had said, because if it was, you know, let's say they won 6 or 5, whatever it might be, and Shaq was the Finals MVP for 5 or 6 years, for Kobe, I know that he might say that he want to win, you know, 12 rings, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to compare yourself to a Jordan or anything like that, I think Kobe really carries that on himself. And if he was, you know, Rodman for 6 Finals MVPs, I don't think his legacy would have been as great as it is right now.
I got you. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. My man Champ in Detroit. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, Champ, did you hear?
What's up?
Did you hear?
What
we
happened?
actually had you and your take about Andrew Luck and the $24 million yesterday in a promo.
Oh, wow.
See that?
Appreciate it.
Now, don't say your boy don't show you love now. Don't say your boy don't show you love now. All right, go ahead.
But you know me, I might be the biggest Kobe fan ever. Kobe needs to stop.
Right.
And I'm just going to say that. I'm going to tell you why. Mm-hmm. Rob Parker tried to address it the proper way on ESPN about RG3, about being a cornball brother. He couldn't say it the right way. Let me tell you what I mean by this. Kobe Bryant spent a lot of time overseas, came back to the United States, played high school basketball in Philadelphia, goes right out to L.A. He wasn't a great teammate in the beginning. He didn't know how to adjust to being around a black athlete. He was secluded by himself. And because of that, Shaq everybody loved Shaq in LA.
Yeah.
Remember when everything was going down?
Shaq was loved everywhere.
They was trying to run Kobe Bryant out of Los Angeles.
No. You talking about after Shaq got traded?
Correct.
All right. After Shaq got traded, there were people in the streets, and this I know for a fact because I've told it to you and my listeners and everybody else. There were people in the streets that wanted to do harm to Kobe Bryant so badly, they knew how he got to games. They were planning on doing something to him before he got to an arena. They were planning on doing serious harm to him. And it was Shaq that picked up the phone, calmed everybody down, assured them that Shaq Claus would still be contributing to the community and that this was just business. Do not in any way think about doing any harm to Kobe Bryant. I know that for a fact.
Kobe Bryant has an identity crisis. The man is in his 40s and still conduct and act and carry himself like Michael Jordan. I mean, my man Rock from Rock Bottom always talk about this. We go back and forth with Kobe Bryant's personality. He has an identity crisis, and it shows night in and night out. I mean, he calls himself the Black Mamba. He represents himself as a snake. And just hear me out. Go ahead. I'm strictly talking about from the black community, the culture that we go by. When Kobe Bryant comes off as a guy who's just not in touch.
Well, okay, all right, listen, stop right there. I heard you, but stop right there. Let me chime in for a second. Yeah, he's a little bit different. I mean, the man speaks 3 languages fluently, okay?
Phenomenal.
He's brilliant, okay? And obviously, at the early part of his year, he was raised in a different culture. I get all of that. But Kobe Bryant, the part of that black culture has to do with realness and authenticity. He clearly is not lacking that. And then on top of it all, I think all of this MJ stuff, while it might have been true during his playing days, I don't think Kobe, the man that's in retirement, you understand, that's winning Academy Awards and stuff like that, I don't think that dude, I think that guy is perfectly comfortable in his own skin. He ain't trying to do anything but be Kobe.
No,
I can't go with that.
By being comfortable in his own skin, what I'm saying is the perception of, not from me. For example, after Colorado, Kobe Bryant goes out and get a tattoo. Kobe Bryant goes out and gets his ears
I'm saying to you, you're talking about Kobe Bryant, the player. I'm talking about Kobe Bryant, the man that exists now. He ain't trying to be nobody but Kobe Bryant. He is Kobe.
No, right. So, but to sum everything up, I'm saying you're getting the backlash because whenever the Kobe Bryant and Shaq conversation comes out, Kobe always has something slick and negative to say about Shaq. But Shaq, night in and night out, even when they come up with LeBron or everything, he's always bigging up Kobe. He's saying Kobe's the greatest Laker. When they try to bring up Magic, when they try to bring up Jerry West, they try to put LeBron in the category. He shoots it down. Is always big up Kobe, where every time Shaquille O'Neal name comes up with Kobe Bryant, he's taking a shot at him. When in reality, one can argue if Kobe Bryant would have been a better teammate. Remember when Shaq went to Miami, they all hung out and they was a great team. They said Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers never hung out.
So here's what you're saying. You're saying while Kobe looks to Shaq's conditioning as a reason that derailed their championship quest, you're saying the other side to this is that if Kobe had been a better teammate, had he worked to ingratiate himself with his teammates considerably better than he did, that also might have won them championships. So he shouldn't just be looking at Shaq. He should just be looking at himself. Is that what you're saying?
It's called leadership. Kobe Bryant lacked leadership skills in terms of being a great teammate and having folks follow him to success.
Okay.
Michael Jordan had people follow him.
That's true.
LeBron James don't have players following him. He wants everything put to that.
I will say this to you, and that's not an insult against any of them, but you are absolutely right about that. People, they feared, even if it were for fear, they followed Michael Jordan more than they follow LeBron or they follow Kobe.
Right.
Or they follow Kobe. That's a fact.
So when you put that all in the ingredients, Kobe Bryant would never be in the conversation as the greatest of all time in terms of Mount Rushmore, Muhammad Ali, Babe Ruth, and so forth like that. In terms of what he was saying, talent-wise, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, the number one reason why they didn't win a lot more rings is because David Stern and the NBA changed the rules and implemented the zone. So, and that's what hurt the Lakers more than anything. That's the next level of the conversation. But when Kobe Bryant talks about Shaq not being in shape, that's another slap in the face. And you got folks bringing up saying, well, Shaq bought girls Mercedes-Benzes and Range Rovers too. Gotcha. That's the issue with Kobe. He got to be quiet. All right. Talking about Shaquille O'Neal.
Appreciate it, champ. Appreciate it a lot, man. Thanks a lot. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back to your calls and more before Keyshawn Johnson comes on to jumpstart hour number 2 right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN. You know, it's one thing for it to be the injuries, the numerous things that he's had, the shoulders, the lacerated kidneys, etc. But he alluded to it being something else, something more mental. Have you gained some perspective on exactly what he was going through that led to him retiring a week and a half before the NFL season began, as opposed to the start of training camp or maybe even sometime earlier?
Well, I mean, I understand the criticism in terms of the timing and the negative effect that has on a football team that's just, 2 weeks from starting the regular season. But I really think it was, his expectation that the injury was going to be resolved at some point and the pain was going to go away and he was going to be able to play without being impaired. And that just never happened. And he said himself that he never really considered retiring from football until 2 weeks from the time that he actually did it. And he was so committed to that course of action that the Colts did have a conversation with him that involved, Chris Ballard, the general manager, Jim Irsay, the owner of the team, and the head coach, Frank Reich, in which they proposed, well, let's see if we can take it. We'll put you on IR. Let's see if we can get this resolved over, a certain space of time during the course of the season and then bring you back, but leave ourselves that option. And he just wanted nothing to do with it. He was, at that point, his mind was made up that he didn't love football anymore, the way he was having to play it, what he was having to put into it, the pain he was enduring in every phase of his life. And so he just decided that at this point, at least, he was better off without it permanently.
So did they elect to leave him be, probably presuming that he'll change his mind and ultimately he'll come back maybe in a year, 2 years max? Or is it one of those situations that they're resigned to the fact that he has spoke with such definitiveness that they don't think there's any way that Andrew Luck is going to change his mind and elect to come back to the game of football?
Well, they put him on reserve retired, and I don't know what the terms and conditions were of the settlement that they reached in terms of the $24 million unpaid dollars in his contract. But I assume that during the process of negotiating all of that, the Colts have been very careful to protect their rights to Andrew Luck going forward, because either, if he comes back, they would want to be open to the possibility of having him be their quarterback, or if they've somehow replaced him adequately in their own minds, he would certainly have a trade value.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, is being brought to you live from above Pier 17 at South Street Seaport, presented by Chase. Back to the phones we go before hour number 2 jumps out at us. Let's go to Robbie. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Robbie?
Hey, what's going on, Steven? First of all, big fan of yours.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask, what do you think is going to happen with the NFC East this year?
Philadelphia Eagles will win the division. Dallas Cowboys will capture the wild card spot. That's what I believe.
That's what I like to hear, baby. And what do you think? How do you think Jadeveon Clowney's going to go? Do you think he's going to go to the Eagles?
We don't know yet. Keyshawn Johnson. I'm going to ask him about Jadeveon Clowney because I think he'll have something interesting to say about that as well. But there's a lot of places Jadeveon Clowney can end up because there's a whole bunch of teams out there that need an edge rusher. We shall see. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you. Let's go to Dan. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Dan?
Hey, Stephen A. How you doing?
I'm all right. Go ahead.
I just want to preface something real quick. You are my colossal favorite person to listen to because, let me tell you why. Because you are verbose, loquacious, and I love your lexicon, and you don't dumb it down for people because I work in education, and I work with at-risk students, and I always tell them if you don't know a word, you have a choice. You can remain ignorant or you can look it up. So I just want to give you some reverence for that you speak the truth. You don't dumb it down You let people figure it out. You don't, there's a big debate about this. You give your best, or do you talk down to people? I love that you don't do that. Okay, can I digress for a quick moment?
All right, go ahead, because you only got a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm a colossal Chris Paul fan. I've been since high school, and I love him so much. I want to make a quick reference. In the Game 6 against Golden State, Chris Paul was 11 for 18. James Harden was 11 for 31. I just want to say people are sleeping on Chris Paul. He still has 5 good years to go. He's not injured. I know you have a relationship with him because you communicate with him. So I wanted to ask you, what is he's going to make if he stays in OKC? He's going to make them better.
He's going to make them better, but they're not winning a championship. Now, I need you to get to your –
I know that.
I've only got a minute left, sir. I only got a minute left. So if you got another question, you better get it out now. I got a hard break in a minute.
I'd love to see him in L.A., get rid of Rondo and a couple other guys, Chris Paul, eat some of his own salary, cut it back to win a title, run with your best friend LeBron. They're godparents to each other. You know more than I do.
Is that why you called up here today, sir?
I called to ask you, what is the future for Chris Paul?
Chris Paul is going to be in Oklahoma City. My personal opinion is that he should sacrifice about $5 million, get bought out by Oklahoma City, and end up in L.A. with LeBron. That's my personal preference, and I have specifically told him that's exactly what he should do. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to listen because he wants his money now, but that's exactly what I have told him to do. I appreciate the call. Thank you. Let's go to Jamie real quick. You're live with Stephen A. You got a minute, Jamie. Go.
Hey, Stephen A. I just called real quick to ask you about, I don't know if you saw the clip. The Uninterrupted Twitter posted a preview of their new Shop episode, and Gronkowski said that, quote, nobody is treated like a superstar in that franchise, not even Brady. I just wanted to know your opinion on that comment.
Well, listen, I usually would be averse to such things because I'm of the mindset that we live in a capitalistic society, and to the victors goes the spoils. And those who are great and benefit, an entity more than others sometimes get treated differently. And you don't see a problem with that as long as the basement for it is respect as human beings, and a core decency is extended to everyone equally. But I do think that, there are people that are more valuable than others in a particular setting. Having said all of that, it's hard to argue with anything that New England does because they've got 6 rings and 9 Super Bowl appearances in this millennium. So it's hard to argue with them. I got to go. I appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Hour number 2 up next. Get into some more NFL talk. Continue talking about Kobe.
Smith Show starts right now.
Human beings
ESPN News, 888-SAY ESPN is the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back with your calls and more in a minute. But first, people, I'm here to tell you about Zelle, a quick and easy way to send and receive money right from your banking app. If you're sending your kid off to college this fall, remember that the best care package isn't a package at all. Just send them money with Zelle. It's easy to use, and the money you send goes directly into your college student's bank account, typically within minutes if they're already enrolled. That way, they can pick out the perfect care package for themselves. Look for Zelle in your banking app or get more info at ZellePay.com. Zelle, this is how money moves. Terms and conditions apply. Nature Valley Sweetness. Rob Gronkowski and his emotions. You know, talking about he wasn't right. I don't know if we have that sound, John, but talking about he wasn't right. He had to get himself together. It was necessary to step away from the game because he just wasn't right. That's what he was saying. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Rob Gronkowski himself.
I needed to recover. I was not in a good place. Football was bringing me down, and I didn't like it. And I was losing that joy in life, like the joy. I'm sorry right now, but I really was, and I was fighting through it. And I knew what I signed up for, and I knew what I was fighting through, and I knew I just have to fix myself.
Interesting to hear that from Rob Gronkowski, because the one thing that you absolutely positively could say about Rob Gronkowski, other than the fact that he was fantastic, that he's a future Hall of Famer, that he was universally recognized as the best tight end in football, and that injuries more so than anything else in all likelihood derailed him and made him retire before the age of 30. The one thing that we cannot deny is that what is the ebulliency or the joy of playing football, it emanated from him. You saw it constantly when he was out on the field. One of my favorite times of watching the touchdown celebration from Rob Gronkowski is when the New England Patriots had to go over to London to play, and he scored the touchdown and then started marching like the soldier, what are they called, John? The folks that be the big head, the folks in England, for crying out loud. Yeah, the English guard or whatever, how he was marching like that before spiking the ball. It was really, really funny to watch him do that years back. But you know what? He got emotional yesterday when detailing his reasons for retiring from the NFL. He was speaking at an event in New York City to announce his new partnership with the CBD company, CBD Medic to be exact. And when he was speaking about that, you could see that he fought back tears in speaking about it because it was getting emotional. So one would argue, considering the environment that he was in, that he was alluding to the plethora of injuries that he incurred while he was playing football for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, he made $97 million, but he earned that. He did that. He's good enough to play a sport where he was able to make that money and make this decision.
The Indianapolis Colts has elected to let him keep $24 million, but in the same time, you got folks in the media complaining about guys like Le'Veon Bell, Holden, Ezekiel Elliott. I think every player in the NFL who feel they don't have a better deal should hold out today. If you can quit and get $24 million,
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on The Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
By Ivan Mizell, commemorating the 150th anniversary of college football. Download, subscribe, and review Down and Distance, available wherever you enjoy your podcast. 28 minutes past hour number 2, back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 888-SAY ESPN is always the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Dylan Moses, star linebacker for the Alabama Crimson Tide, has been ruled out indefinitely. Knee injury requiring surgery. He's going to be out. Obviously, that's a devastating blow for the Tide, particularly when you got a team like Clemson with Trevor Lawrence waiting, with Georgia and Fromm and those boys waiting, with Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts, former quarterback at Alabama, now the starting quarterback at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, with him waiting. There's a lot going on. Make no mistake about it. And it's going to be really interesting to see what transpires and what unfolds in the weeks to come. But that's a devastating loss. It looks like a season-ending injury. Doesn't look like Dylan Moses will be back at all. So that's a devastating loss for Alabama. Make no mistake about it. Just absolutely, positively devastating. Nick Saban's got to figure something out here. Got to figure something out. Torn ACL. That's what he's suffering from. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back to the phones we go. Right here. Stephen A. ESPN Radio. ESPN News. Let's get to it. Let's go to Dre. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Dre? Andre, are you there?
Hello.
Yep.
Hey, how you doing, Stephen A? First time caller, love the show.
Thank you.
Man, I just got to say I'm a longtime Steelers fan, and once I heard those comments from AB, man, that really disgusted me. I mean, to me, you just got to let it go, man. And then the fact that, you tell the man, shut up already. I mean, how does that make your current quarterback feel, Derek Carr? I mean,
well,
we were never friends.
After saying that you were and all of that other stuff, you basically revealing yourself to be something less than real and authentic. So once again, Antonio Brown is in the news for the wrong reasons. I guess one could argue it doesn't really matter because the games haven't started yet. They got a Monday night game to open the season. We understand that, but the flip side to it is when you look at Antonio Brown, what are you to think? What are you to believe? If you're somebody that's a teammate, how much are you going to really trust him before he turns on you? That's got to be your attitude. One's got to survive.
That's the first thing I thought about. I was like, wow, Derek Carr reading that like, well, how do I know you're being fake with me? I mean, I don't know. It's just
I don't think Derek Carr cares about that. I think Derek Carr cares about them building their on-field chemistry so they could go out there and win some football games. They ain't losing no sleep. And be honest with you, Big Ben Roethlisberger probably ain't losing any sleep over it. He got a contract extension. He's 37 years of age. He's making about $34 million this year. He's got his money. So he's doing what he's doing. And the franchise that is the Pittsburgh Steelers have clearly placed their faith in Big Ben Roethlisberger. Make no mistake about that. The Rooney's going to take care of him. He's their guy. And you see he's going, and Le'Veon Bell, who vouched for Antonio Brown, is going too. Neither one of them got their money from Pittsburgh. Neither one of them got more than they had anticipated, expected, or hoped for. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call,
that.
man.
Thank you, Stephen A.
Thank you. Let's go to Kyle. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Kyle? How are you?
What's up, Stephen A? I appreciate you taking my phone call today on my birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday, man. Happy birthday.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Got a question about the timing of Adam Schefter's tweet during the Colts game. And I get he's an insider. I just want to know if that's just being an insider and you gotta go with the information when you have it, or if you think he could have held on to that and then could have been avoided some of the.
He did the right thing. Let me ask you this question:
Okay.
Does Adam Schefter work for ESPN or does he work for the Indianapolis Colts?
Right, he works for ESPN.
He works for ESPN. It's the media, and the fact of the matter is, if he didn't get it, somebody else might have gotten wind of it, and then they would have broke the story. So
right,
if you have an
I see that
opportunity
point.
as an insider to break the story. Had contracted AIDS and and you hear about something like that, I'd have kept that story too. It's not important to me to break the story under those conditions. That's life. You see what I'm saying?
Got it.
That's far more serious. But you retiring, that's all sports. That's all sports. All of it. And Adam Schefter was perfectly within his right to do exactly what he did.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to TJ. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, TJ?
Hey, Stephen, how's it going, man?
I'm good. Talk to me.
I want to address Cam Newton and the Panthers.
Go ahead.
Y'all were talking about this morning about Cam Newton and his QB percentage and staying healthy and stuff. Do you think this year with a clean bill of health, if he stays healthy in big moments, then Cam Newton can get it done?
Listen, I would say to you, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Norv Turner is your offensive coordinator. He's proven to be one of, if not the best, at what he does in the business. Maybe not. You may not want Norv Turner as your head coach, evidenced by his job when they were the Chargers to win San Diego. But there is no question that he is an elite coordinator on the offensive side of the ball and deserves and warrants everybody's respect. When you look at Cam Newton for the first time in his career, complete better than 67% of his passes, almost 68% of his passes, when he had never completed even 60% of his passes with the exception of his rookie year, which was right at 60. One has to give them the combination of Cam Newton and a healthy Cam Newton and Norv Turner the benefit of the doubt. One has to give that to them and surmise that if Cam Newton is healthy with a guy like Christian McCaffrey, they could do some things. It remains to be seen how the loss of Devin Funchess may hurt them. But there is no question that the Carolina Panthers could definitely potentially do some things with a healthy Cam Newton. We have to wait and see. I would tell you based off of last year, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. If it were not for last year, I would wonder about him because I've always felt that Cam Newton could be more of an accurate passer.
100% agree. I appreciate the call. I've been a long-time fan, and y'all really brought me through a lot of tough days, and I just appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. All the best to you. Noel, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Yeah, I want to address the Antonio Brown situation. Hello?
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, with Big Ben, right? He said, like, they was treating them like kids, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Antonio Brown, if a person treats you like a kid and you don't got no say to get through to the coaches or
Stop, bro. You all over the place. Antonio Brown was alluding to that when he was trying to get the hell out of Pittsburgh. Yeah. And then he reminded folks once he got out of Pittsburgh. It's months later now, bro. It's months later.
No, but when he was on, like when he was a member of the Steelers, he ain't showing him no respect.
Did you hear what I just said? He was trying to get out of Pittsburgh. He got out of Pittsburgh, got $30 million in additional guaranteed money from the Oakland Raiders, and has been in an Oakland Raiders uniform for months. He got into a situation with his whole feet being messed up. He got into a situation with the helmet, filing 2 grievances against the National Football League when he was the only person in the entire damn league who was complaining to this point when the league with over 2,000 plus players during training camp and preseason. Okay? What I'm saying to you is that nobody's knocking Antonio Brown for what he said. What we're saying is you said all of that already. You've made your feelings known about how you feel about Big Ben Roethlisberger. Why go there now?
Yeah.
That's the issue. Let it go. Bye, man. You know I'm right. Have a nice day, Noel. Scott, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Mr. Smith, good afternoon. I appreciate allowing me to speak with you.
Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
First off, I want to give you high praise and apologize to you for years. When you first came on the scene, I thought you were just an obnoxious person. But one day I was in chemotherapy. They put it on the wrong radio station that I requested, and it was you. So I was forced to listen to you, but I could feel your passion and your knowledge reverberate through me. And for that, I apologize, but I appreciate listening to you every day.
No need to apologize. It's all good, man. You're gonna have your fans. You're gonna have your critics. That's all part of the business. I'm good with it. Go ahead, sir. Hey, I appreciate that. Go ahead and make your point.
You're definitely good at what you do. So I heard Keyshawn say earlier, made a joke about Andrew Luck going into the Hall of Fame. Tell me there's no way that's ever going to happen.
That Andrew Luck's going to go into the Hall of Fame? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's enough of a track record for him to end up in the Hall of Fame. I think people can look at him and say he was destined for the Hall of Fame had he continued on this track, but I don't believe that he'll probably end up in the Hall of Fame.
All right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Smith, and you have a wonderful day, and I hope your shoulders are doing better.
You do the same. It's getting there slowly but surely. It's getting there. Thank you so much. Eric, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A. Thanks for taking my call.
Go ahead, man. No problem.
Hey, I heard you ask Keyshawn earlier who he was taking in the NFC and why. But who's your team in the NFC?
I haven't decided yet, believe it or not. But I'm leaning towards New Orleans. That would be my team. I think Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the NFC East. I think Chicago or Green Bay is going to win the North. I think New Orleans is going to win the South. I think the Rams are going to win the West again. I think that New Orleans on its home turf will probably go undefeated at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. I think they'll ensure home field advantage, and I think the road to the Super Bowl will have to go through New Orleans, and this time there won't be a pass interference to save the Rams or anyone else. I think New Orleans will get it done, and I think Drew Brees ultimately goes out potentially as a Super Bowl champion. That depends on who they go against, but I think that if I had to bet my money, I would pick Drew Brees to be in the Super Bowl. I don't know against who as of yet, but he would at least get to the Super Bowl before retiring.
I think you're right. I think it's that Week 2 game against the Rams. I'm a Rams fan, by the way, but I think that Week 2 game between the Rams and the Saints is really important, and I'm happy that the NFL put that early in the season because that's going to be an important game. Because it's only Week 2. Yeah. But it's based on your record at the end of the season, wins and losses on where the playoffs are going to go, and I think Dallas is going to be good. I think you hit it. I think Philadelphia is going to be good. But I think New Orleans, I think they're going to be on a rampage, especially because of what happened last year in the championship game.
Yeah, that Week 2 game is at L.A. That's at L.A. Hell, I might go to that game. But that's going to be at L.A. You understand? So if they win that game, that'll be a huge game for New Orleans. And if you can't play inside the Dome on your home turf, ain't too many better places to visit than L.A., I can tell you that much. 888-SAY-ESPN, that's 888-729-3776. More of your calls to close out the show. In a minute, you're listening live to Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Oh, by the way, did you know overall job satisfaction is at its highest? It's one thing for it to be the injuries, the numerous things that he's had, the shoulders, the lacerated kidneys, etc. But he alluded to it being something else, something more mental. Have you gained some perspective on exactly what he was going through that led to him retiring a week and a half before the NFL season began, as opposed to the start of training camp or maybe even sometime earlier?
Well, I mean, I understand the criticism in terms of the timing and the negative effect that has on a football team that's just, 2 weeks from starting the regular season. But I really think it was, his expectation that the injury was going to be resolved at some point and the pain was going to go away and he was going to be able to play without being impaired. And that just never happened. And he said himself that he never really considered retiring from football until 2 weeks from the time that he actually did it. And he was so committed to that course of action that the Colts did have a conversation with him that involved, Chris Ballard, the general manager, Jim Irsay, the owner of the team, and the head coach, Frank Reich, in which they proposed, well, let's see if we can take it. We'll put you on IR. Let's see if we can get this resolved over, a certain space of time during the course of the season and then bring you back, but leave ourselves that option. And he just wanted nothing to do with it. He was, at that point, his mind was made up that he didn't love football anymore, the way he was having to play it, what he was having to put into it, the pain he was enduring in every phase of his life. And so he just decided that at this point, at least, he was better off without it permanently.
So did they elect to leave him be, probably presuming that he'll change his mind and ultimately he'll come back maybe in a year, 2 years max? Or is it one of those situations that they're resigned to the fact that he has spoke with such definitiveness that they don't think there's any way that Andrew Luck is going to change his mind and elect to come back to the game of football?
Well, they put him on reserve retired, and I don't know what the terms and conditions were of the settlement that they reached in terms of the $24 million unpaid dollars in his contract, but I assume that during the process of negotiating all of that, the Colts have been very careful to protect their rights to Andrew Luck going forward, because either, if he comes back, they would want to be open to the possibility of having him be their quarterback, or if they've somehow replaced him adequately in their own minds, he would certainly have a trade value.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on The Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
If you missed any of today's show, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith Podcast, brought to you by Capital One. Capital One is reimagining banking, offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened in 5 minutes. Capital One, hey, what's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A., member, FDIC. Back to the phones we go before we get on out of here for the day. Des, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A., I wanted to see your thoughts on who you think would have been a better player if they never played with each other, Kobe or Shaq.
If they never played with each other, I'd say
If they never teamed up, teamed up.
It's hard to answer that question because I think both of them would have been who they are without the other. I just don't know if they would have won the championships that they won. I think that Shaq, you can't teach 7'1", 350. And he was clearly the most dominant force since Wilt Chamberlain and arguably one of the top two most dominant forces of our lifetime. And so when you look at it from that perspective and what he brought to the table, Shaq was Shaq before Kobe ever arrived. But as a big man, it ain't enough to win the championship if you don't have the pieces around you. Penny Hardaway wasn't enough to win the championship. Eddie Jones wasn't enough to win the championship. But when Kobe arrived and ascended, it was enough for you to win the championship. And then D. Wade, he wouldn't have won the championship in Miami had it not been for D. Wade. And so when we look at it from that perspective, clearly he needs the help in terms of winning championships, but he was still Shaq. He was still who he was. And then when you look at guys like Kobe, even without Shaq, you see how surreal he was. So I think that they would have still been who they were, but neither of them would have 4 and 5 rings respectively.
Okay, then I got one more question for you. I hear a lot of people say Kevin Durant the best scorer ever besides Kareem.
I said he has
no,
you didn't hear anybody say that. They said he has a chance to be because Kevin Durant can do anything he wants offensively. Usually the only reason why Kevin Durant ain't averaging 30 on a regular is because he's always been deferential. He doesn't mind other guys getting involved, taking shots because he thinks about playing the right way. And he's one of the most efficient superstars we've ever seen. But when you consider the fact that he averages 27 a game for his career on better than 50% shooting, there is no question that if Kevin Durant was more committed to scoring even more, he could, and he could potentially eclipse Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the all-time leading scorer in NBA history.
So would you say he's a better scorer than Kobe?
Kevin Durant, yes, because you can't teach 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan with those skills that he has. Absolutely. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Janelle. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Janelle.
Hi, Stephen A. Smith. How are you?
How are you? What's up?
I'm a huge Steelers fan, and I just want to tell Antonio Brown, shut up already. He needs to move on and grow up. And then, can you please tell my husband, the Cowboys fan, that the Cowboys will not go to the Super Bowl?
Well, they ain't going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm allergic to saying Super Bowl and Cowboys in the same sentence, but only because of the Cowboy fans. I got no problem with my buddy Jerry Jones. I love Jerry. And Stephen Jones, he's a nice man as well. And the Cowboys players like Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch and those boys, monsters. I know their defense is big time. But I'm not mentioning the Super Bowls and the Cowboys in the same sentence to save my life. I won't do it. I won't do it. Somehow, some way, these fans will contaminate this franchise and they will come up short yet again because that's who Cowboys fans are. They stink, okay? Cowboys fans I'm talking about. That's who they are. No, we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? Every year it's the same thing. And they always come up short. That's who Cowboy fans are. Too bad. Cowboys have them as fans. Anyway, I'll be back in 22 hours. Until then, peace and love, everybody. Stephen A. Smith Show, signing off.